Aloha. With this video, I wanted to share this quick little clip. This is gonna be in reference to obviously the New Age agenda. I just finished I didn't finish watching, but I started watching Russell Brand's interview with Joe Rogan on Joe Rogan's podcast. And it started off by Joe introducing Russell Brand as some kind of guru now. He's some kind of like, I mean, they're joking and everything, but they're really not. Especially when you're talking about spirituality in a spiritually dead consciousness. People, anybody who's talking about spiritual information or consciousness of any kind is going to be taking seriously, at least in that kind of scope. And it's not a joking matter to just be like, oh yeah, this is a spiritual guru. Like this is how the system downplays everything. It becomes like makes everything into some kind of joke by co-opting it. They kill it by co-opting it. So now that Russell Brand has been deemed some kind of guru in the eyes of mainstream media, like one of the biggest mouthpieces out there in the mainstream media, what that does is it downplays the idea of what a guru actually means or is. And this is not to, or a teacher actually is. And this isn't to like defend gurus or anything. This is to defend like deep teachings. That's what it is. Like generally, the teachings that go into depth beyond the system of racism, white supremacy. This video is a good example of how the New Age agenda and people who represent the New Age, this New World Order New Age agenda, this is a good example of how that program, like I said, co-ops your strengths in order to make your strengths your weapons against yourself, to turn your strengths into self-destructive weapons against yourself. So by downplaying what your strengths really are, how far they could go. So your spiritual strength, one of your biggest strengths is your spiritual strength, like the strength of your intelligence, but it's deeper than that. Your spiritual strength, if it's sold back to you by an individual who is channeling that approach or that strength back into the system, then what he's doing is in a sense creating a space where you give your power away. So you're giving your spiritual power away to the mainstream media, the system of racism, white supremacy, the colonial establishment. When you approach your spiritual consciousness or your spiritual like the deeper parts of yourself, when they are only anchored in the shallow ocean beds of ocean floors of like the colonial establishment, then your maximum approach is kind of like how the system wants people to protest. It wants people to protest the system because in that protesting, you're asking the system to empower you're asking the system to change. And what you're doing is in that same moment, you're telling the system has more power than you. That you're powerless, and beyond that, you're telling the system that whatever happens will happen in reference to changing the system, making the system better, evolving the system. And that goes into a space that obviously goes into a space of the people remaining powerless. So the fear has to be amplified. Your emotional triggers have to be amplified. So Armageddon, it doesn't have to focus on like the people, or he's a spiritual guru now, right? So his perspectives are of a higher consciousness. So if his perspectives on society and so-called civilization dismiss racism, white supremacy, then it's dismissing one of the biggest psychological mind control programs of our entire experience, especially right now. So this is why I'm making this video. This is what the New Age agenda and these New Age mouthpieces are out there for, to dismiss the deeper approaches and to amplify the shallow approaches to maintain the consciousness of changing the system, evolving the system, keeping the system of enslavement, so that under the guise of evolving the system, like all this change is happening. So just the same way that you follow Russell Brand for his deep perspectives of consciousness and all this other shit, you're gonna follow his deep fears or interpretations of Armageddon and all that other shit. And so his idea of Armageddon is when the European castles fall, when the European so-called civilizations become exposed. So 9/11 and all the stuff that he mentions, this is about the exposing of the European dominance over the world. And he's going to say that this is because he's going to shrink it down to like the people versus the bad guys. But this is not at best. And the bad guys are what? It's us. We're doing this. It's like, no. Where were the us when Tulsa and the Oklahoma the Tulsa race riots, when that broke off? Where was the us in that? See, that same consciousness that created that destructive event, that our destructive Armageddon back then in Tulsa in 1921, that stuff, that same mentality, that same psychology, that same consciousness, that same event type style happened way back when. That was an example of our Armageddon, like at that time. And that event is equivalent to the other events that he's getting ready to mention in here. He's talking about like the burning down of Notre Dame. You can hear, let me just play this so you can hear it for yourself, how they have to create this sort of tear-jerking, emotionally triggering just kind of anchor points in your reality, so that you have some kind of vested interest in the system getting better or changing. Or if it falls, then you feel bad about it. That's the thing. Who the fuck cares about, this empire falling? Only people who are vested in the empire. Sure as hell, fucking millionaires are going to be vested in the empire. So if the empire is shifting towards a new age interpretation of reality, then obviously the people who are in power, the gods and kings within Hollywood, celebrities, politicians, they are going to sell whatever they can to maintain their deified reality, their kingly fucking reality. They will maintain it in any kind of way. They will maintain it with war. They will maintain it with keeping you dumb and intelligence, psychology. And they will maintain it by manipulating your spiritual interpretations of this reality and yourself. Period. End of fucking story. And these are the representatives of that kind of mind fuckery.
What meaning do you attach to the image of the burning Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris? Does it make you feel like it's a sign of Armageddon?
No, Russell, it doesn't at all make me feel like it's a sign of Armageddon.
I suppose architectural achievements are mankind's finest, easily identifiable symbolic achievements. You could argue there are great achievements in the world of science, couldn't you? Or in the world of philosophy, theology, literature. But as
that church, the Catholic Church, is seen as an achievement. He's also going to say mankind in this video, so keep an eye on that too. These words are very, very key in this. I'll do some videos on how they're going to start talking about the differences between our species, start evolving the definitions of what humans are. They've already gone into this. In the top right, you can see the Graham Hancock interview. I've already done videos sharing how these people fit into the system. I did a video talking about David Wilcock, who's one of the main New Age speakers out there. He's been on the History Channel, Ancient Aliens. So he claims to be, or other people claim that he is the reincarnated Edgar Casey, like all kinds of crazy ass shit. But in the Graham Hancock interview, they start talking about different kinds of human beings, like different genotypes, and also historical beginnings. So the New Age is also, like I say, it's going to be bringing in this new idea of history, this new idea of who we are and what we are, to, like I said, add more substance to the depths of who we are in order to maintain their dominance and control. So they need people to sell those, like the underdogs, like Graham Hancock. He's like the underdog in science, right? Like he includes DMT in real science and all that other stuff. So we should be looking up to him, right? The same way Joe Rogan puts only white teachers and white so-called spiritual teachers or whatever on his channel, and like majority is because he's selling an idea. He's selling the American dream. That's what he represents. The same way the system only puts white people in the White House or the presidency. Why have you only been in a nation that is originally peopled with people who are of an indigenous relationship to this land? You have to be manipulated to think that in order to create a new history, you have to be constantly inundated with the powerlessness storyline. This is the so-called democratic, capitalistic, new world sort of colonial idea on stolen land, on the blood and bones of the original people. The White House, the presidency, all that stuff represents the ignorance of that. The same way Joe Rogan represents his version of the White House. The Joe Rogan experience is the White House of the internet. And it's designed to keep you from going any further than the consciousness put out by that White House. So Russell Brand is his own White House. He's his own White House of information. And when he tells you to get or not get angry, but to think, feel sad about this stuff, and like the feats of mankind and like all this stuff, like glorifying this pedophilic sort of, like, I'm not trying to like defend the Catholic Church in any kind of way. At the same time, I'm not trying to like be like, oh yeah, like let's be happy that this shit burned down, but I sure as hell ain't fucking sad. I don't give a fuck about that church. Only people who give a fuck about that church are people who are vested in the mind control programs overall. Nobody on the massive scale tip gives one fuck about Notre Dame and all that other bullshit in that religious mind control program. In fact, the masses know what the fuck is going on in that church. And if you ain't saying shit about the power that church is connected to, then fuck you, period. So this is how these individuals are. The main thing here Russell Brand is doing. Look how he's using his hands and all that shit. He's talking to millions of people. He's speaking to the fucking world. When people speak like that, they're trying to make you. They're trying to like force you to think about something. You just have to say shit. You don't have to really like say things to say things that really matter. You just gotta say the shit. So when people are like saying stuff like this, the way he's saying it. He's saying it because he's not really saying anything. He has to sell it to you. So, yeah, what is he selling? That's the whole point. He's selling an idea that really is dead already. He's selling a dead idea. So in order to sell a dead idea, you got to sell it with a lot of life and a lot of extra shit like mind control.
A visible emblem, the city and great architectural feats such as Notre Dame. It's like the best thing mankind can do. Think of...
Whoa. So building Notre Dame is like the best thing mankind can do. Okay, well, what is mankind? What is mankind? See, these are the things that are out there that you won't... See, mankind built a civilization we call the colonial establishment today. Mankind built the Twin Towers and then brought them down. Mankind built Notre Dame and then burned it down. Mankind built this power grid that you're underneath today. And then is now pulling the orchestrated demolition of that empire. And then trying to tell you what to do in that event. Just the same way they told you what to do in the official story of 9/11. And the official stories of all the other false flags that were out there that triggered all these wars and so on and so forth. If false flag events like 9/11 triggered war, then false flag events like the burning of Notre Dame are going to trigger a war on spirit, like the spirit, the true spirituality. So this represent, he said, does this represent Armageddon? No, using words like Armageddon is fucking lazy. It's cheap. It's like the mainstream media. Talk about what the fuck you're saying. Say what you're fucking saying. Don't use words like Armageddon. This is why nothing actually changes, because people just use words like we all know, like we're all on the same page about what the fuck is going on. Well, no, we are not on the same page about what is going on. Because people like Russell are just throwing shit out there without any fucking accountability. Mankind, Armageddon, the greatest feats. Get the fuck out of here. This is all bullshit.
3 recent buildings that have iconically burned down or exploded.
3
or
to who?
Knocked down.
3 iconic buildings to who?
Like Notre Dame, Grenfell, and the Twin Towers.
So these are all things that happened in predominantly European like power settings or European focus settings. And then somebody go, oh, he is a European. He's from Britain, so he's gonna speak on these. Blah, 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 blah. No. He just lumped in the false flag event of 9/11 with all this. You can't just throw this shit around out there like it's just like a tagline that you can just throw in like some shit like that. No, I'm gonna say something about that shit. These are events, like I said, excuse me, the burning down of Tulsa, the burning of the church, the blowing up of the churches that killed the 4 little girls. When they're telling you what's important, they're telling you that you're not important. That's equally that's equally important. When they're telling you what's important, they're telling you what's not important. When they're telling you that the events that happen to mankind are important, they're saying that mankind is everybody. Mankind is not everybody. Mankind is the people who are in the mind control of, on just a psychological, this is not even get to the biological, so mankind is the people who are completely locked into the power grid, who love this idea of civilization, who are peoples of the civilization. So in their world, when the so-called civilization or the colonial establishment starts to appear to fall or starts to fall, then that is an Armageddon to them, to mankind. But who the fuck are you and who the fuck is mankind? And why is mankind hell-bent on ignoring your story? Why does mankind have to focus all of its attention and all of your attention on its establishment?
Those three images suggest a decline in civilization, or suggest, perhaps more dramatically, an apocalypse. It's almost as if...
An apocalypse, Armageddon, a decline in civilization. Those are big-ass words that mean something very deep. And to throw them around like that, from, like, this guy is some kind of... he's like received as a spiritual authority figure in the world of mankind. Yeah. Anyway, so in that world, what are they telling you is important? What they're telling you is not important is equally important.
Those images exist in our mind already. Adam Curtis did this brilliant thing once where he showed all of these images of skyscrapers being destroyed that...
Get hit by pings or whatever, I don't know.
Were in
Copyright
circulation
shit.
prior to 9/11, as if the event itself somehow existed already in our imagination. When I saw that Notre Dame, I had like burning. I've got no, I've like been there as a tourist, like seen it. I don't think I've even been in it, but it made me feel a sense of great discomfort and dissatisfaction because it's highly resonant. And isn't it? These are the things that I think are
Highly
interesting.
resonant.
One, we know everything is impermanent. We know that at some point, all cities, everything is going to fall apart. As Osho said, what is civilization?
Here's the New
What
Age
is
rant. You about to go
society?
into
It's
it.
just a clearing in the forest.
Nothing matters. Nothing exists. You don't exist. We don't exist. This is all just a big roller coaster, man. That's it. Just ride it. Just ride it on out. Don't think about it. Just ride.
Clear back the nature. We create these wonderful cities and systems, knowing that at some point it
Wonderful.
will fold in. Because of course the sun and the earth, you know that thing, the sun's going to implode and all of that sort of stuff. So even if we're talking an
Heliocentric programming again. Here's a new way. Oh yeah, and blah blah blah. Yeah, the sun's gonna explode. We're all gonna die anyway. Armageddon's coming anyway. We're
comprehensible time in the future. It's inevitable.
Meteors are coming.
It also makes me think, what does Notre Dame represent? It's a symbol of France. It's a symbol of religion. It's a symbol of civilization. So when those things...
It's a symbol of France. It's a symbol of religion. It's a symbol of civilization. It's a symbol of white supremacy. It's a symbol of colonialism. It's a symbol of dominance. It's a symbol of a separation from nature. It's a symbol of racism. Institutionalized racism. It's a symbol of pedophilia. It's a symbol of ignorance.
burn, you can see from like Macron's reaction that it's like an affront to France. Things have symbolic meaning. When Grenfell burned down, I remember feeling, oh, this is probably a terrorist attack. And then it wasn't a terrorist attack. And I thought, I bet people don't care as much because it's just going to be negligence. But actually, people did care. People thought, oh no, this tells us something. This tells us something about the story of our nation, the story of class, the story of poverty. When the Twin Towers came down, you think about it, that was a seismic shift in global politics. From that moment on, everything was different.
What is global politics? Global politics is it's like the paperwork for the colonial establishment. Global politics is another word saying the political back and forths between people within the system of racism, white supremacy, otherwise known as the colonial establishment around the world. These are the people who are put in your face to make you not see that stuff, to make you think. When you think about these stories, you think about them from the perspectives of, you put up the burning down of Notre Dame next to 9/11, as if 9/11 is like this thing that is representative of like a benevolent civilization. See, when he's talking about civilization, that's another attack on you. He's talking about Western civilization as if it's a real fucking civilization. See, that people downplay that shit. You don't see that as a fucking weapon. You need to see that as like a bomb, like a whole bunch of bombs being dropped on the consciousness of your babies. The same way they're doing that in the education system, in the public school system. They're telling you not to critically think about the system itself. That is fucking dangerous. And that's why I focus so much on this new age shit that's out there, because that's going to be the next weapon against the people. It's already a weapon against us, but the next activated weapon against us. And what I'm saying is that the videos like this, what Russell Brand is doing right now, who did this video 7 days ago, a week ago, this is a strike against the people. This is a strike. They are representatives of mankind defending the colonial establishment. Period. And a fucking story. They're defending it by making it look like they're not defending it, by going against it and defending it in that defending it, they're telling you how to think about the stories overall. They're telling you how to think about 9/11. Alex Jones, TYT, Russell Brand, Graham Hancock, Joe Rogan, Owen Benjamin, they tell you how to think about reality right now. They tell you to think about it how it is going right now. They tell you how to think about the past, and they tell you how to think about the future. And in the same time they're telling you how to think about that, they're telling you that everybody else who's saying something else is wrong. If you don't say what they're saying, then they're wrong, or there's something's wrong with them. And the system knows this, so this is why certain people get promoted on YouTube and social media and the internet, and other people get censored, because the system knows that the system wants to promote storylines that are not threatening to its establishment. So this is why people like Russell Brand can talk about 9/11, because they're not talking about the infrastructure of 9/11. They're talking about, at best, the conspiracy theory story of 9/11. And it stops there. The same way you don't know what Armageddon, the words Armageddon are. You don't know what the words like mankind is. So they control you by throwing out these word games, these word controls, and never really going into the depths. And that's why the things can continue to go on and on and on and on, because you have the illusion of knowing what's going on by being inundated by the labels that get thrown out there. 9/11, like terrorism, civilization, mankind, like all these things, Armageddon, like all these things have meaning for you in some kind of way, at least on a subconscious level. When you watch all these fucking movies and commercials and social media posts, it's all fear based. It's all like, these are all key words that he's using to manipulate you to think and act and feel the way he does. And since he seems like a smart, good, spiritual guy, you think being more like him or thinking more like him or being more, having more of an approach on what's going on about like Notre Dame and all this other stuff. And like, if you have something like him, then you're good. You're okay. So that's what the system wants. It wants you to mirror people who are okay with their enslavement. Russell is obviously okay with the enslavement system existing overall. He's a fucking millionaire. Like he's a representative of that system. And you think they're just gonna be having like a bunch of Trumps in Hollywood? No, they're gonna have people opposite or who appear to be the opposite of Trump to defend the system. They're not going to have just like overtly just assholes out there being assholes out there. They're going to have people who love the system. They're going to have people who also secretly love this system, who are like nice and spiritual and all this other stuff. But you won't be able to point them out because they look so like different. They're the polar opposites of what you think is the bad guy, like Trump. That's why he's put out there as the bad guy, to make people like Russell Brand and Joe Rogan look like the superheroes. He's being made up. This is why Trump is being, there's so much, like, obviously, like, we didn't even have so much attention on the presidency and all this other shit back in the day. Why is it now? Because they have to build up this personality of a super villain. So and that's why they have to put so much in there. They don't have enough, he doesn't have enough weight on him on his own to be a villain. So it has to, like, the villain aspect has to be inundated on every single moment, like constantly. So if it's not there organically, it has to be there in your time code every single day, every single moment. So they have to tweet about how every tweet is a snap. Villain. That's a tweet in your consciousness, so that when you have the little tweets that are tweet here and there from like people like Russell Brand, and like 6 months down the road, 3 months down the road, 2 weeks later, or some event like this happens. What does Joe Rogan think? What does Owen Benjamin think about this? What does Russell Brand think about this? So those are like the so-called benevolent tweets of the colonial establishment. Like, this video is like an anti-tweet in their world to Donald Trump tweets. So this is like a hero tweet, whereas Donald Trump, every tweet he does is a villainous tweet. And then you also get the tweet or treats. There's another slip right there. The treats of, because every tweet is a unifying factor. Like, oh yeah, here this dumbass goes again, saying some more stupid ass shit. I'm so happy that we're smart and he's dumb. And you dumbasses, that's what you want. You dumbasses are in underneath that whole. Anyway, that's the whole thing though. As long as he represents the villain, but he also represents a consciousness of idiocy. Like, he's just so dumb that idiot factor is what unifies people. That's it. That's why he has to be emphasized as super dumb, because it's a unifying factor around a limited consciousness, which is extremely beneficial for the system, and which is what Russell Brand represents at the same time.
It was used to license wars that we now know were dubiously underwritten. It's created cultural tensions that go on to this day. What will Notre Dame mean ultimately? Did you see the story where someone said, like, look at these churches?
What I'm saying in this video, this is what it'll mean ultimately. See, right now, people who are distracted by the who consciousness and the what consciousness, they will follow what people say right now. Like Russell Brand, what Joe Rogan is saying right now about Notre Dame, what Owen Bedroman is saying right now about Notre Dame, because the quickest and the most easily receivable, or the universal approaches to what's going on is the who and the what. Like I said, children understand who consciousness. Children copycat. They follow. They follow who. They can see who. That's their main way of learning. To follow their parents, follow their siblings, follow their friends, repeat it. That's focused on who. And later on, they'll figure out what they're actually doing, what's going on. They'll figure out what to do and what not to do. That comes later. They get older. They go beyond that. They start asking how these things work. How is what's going on working? They go a step even further. Then they start figuring out why these things are designed to work the way they work. See, you can see the evolution of this stuff, that this consciousness that's going on, and how people like Russell Brand and Joe Rogan want to keep you focusing on the who, and at best they're going into the what. And if they go into the what consciousness, mind you, there's two other layers of consciousness that are not even being accessed right now. When they go into the what consciousness, it's not even based upon an organic what. It's based upon a what that's going into the system of mind control to evolve the system. So our what would be going into the macro story of what's going on. Their what is going into the mankind Armageddon apocalypse story of what's going on. So you can see how that's inherently defending the system just by the way they talk about it. And they don't have to say that they're defending the system. They just have to talk about the system in a defensive manner.
In Louisiana that have burned down, no one cares about that. Of course people do care about it, but it doesn't have the same narrative weight because not...
You see how this is? Extremely dismissive. I'm going to play this over again so you can see. It just throws that out there. Why is the burning down of Notre Dame so important? In comparison to all the churches that have been burnt, consciously burned down by the same establishment who's losing Notre Dame right now. See, Notre Dame, the people of Notre Dame, have been burning down our churches for centuries. They've been burning down our Notre Dames for centuries. Our Notre Dame, or 9/11, that happened to us in 1921 was the Tulsa, Oklahoma, the riots or the bombings by the KKK in that time. See, that was an Armageddon for our people on our land. But that is completely dismissed and replaced by what you should think of as Armageddon. What you should think of as a worldwide feat that was devastating to mankind. See, so this is like another side thing that's happening. When they're telling you what is so bad, they're telling you that other things aren't so bad. Black church is going down. That's not so bad. Come on. It's not a big deal. It's just black people, right? That's the atmosphere. That's the privilege that goes on. See, look how quickly he dismisses this. Let's go back just a little bit. See how quickly he dismisses that whole conversation. Because that's a conversation. That's not one person in the comment section saying, why don't you say anything about black people being fucked up? That's not one person saying that. That's a whole consciousness that's understood. The psychology, the intelligence of racism, white supremacy, the intelligence of the colonial establishment. That's not one person in the comment section asking you in comparison to this church burning down. That's an entire event. It's an entire mindset. And you can see how it's just dismissed, and how this is a good example of how the New Age and the New Agers are, this is a perfect example actually, the New Agers are inherently dismissive of the indigenous storyline. They're inherently dismissive of challenging the existence of the colonial establishment. They're inherently dismissive of what happened to your people, your human story, your being story, your soul story. Doesn't matter. Fuck you, man. Fuck what's going on in your world. Fucking an apartment building down the street in the UK just fucking burned down, man. Okay, this is like 9/11. You know, black people dying in churches by KKK. That shit ain't. That's not equivalent. What's equivalent? What we need to focus on is ... You see how this shit works? So let's listen to this again. Keep an eye on the dismissive. Like I said, the Tulsa bombings and all that other stuff is, in our eyes, way more is not. I can't even say the word equivalent, because this shit that he's saying is not equivalent to what we're saying. It's not. So what we're saying is not equivalent to what he's saying. Is way beyond that shit. There is no equivalency here. What we're saying, we're speaking for the actual people, not mankind. We're speaking for the actual events. People like Russell Brand are speaking for the mind control that is part of these events to keep that system going.
Were dubiously underwritten. It's created cultural tensions that go on to this day. What will Notre Dame mean ultimately? Did you see the story?
What will Tulsa mean ultimately? Ultimately, what will Tulsa mean ultimately? Like, if I was to speak in a way that you can understand this stuff with an English accent, this is probably fucked up in so many ways. Excuse my accent. If I was to speak about Tulsa and all the events that have come across our people with an accent, would you understand? Would you believe me? Just a little more. Maybe. Maybe not. But in this case, it works. It works for Russell Brand. It's fucking bullshit, man. It's bullshit.
Where someone said, like, look at these churches in Louisiana that have burned down. No one cares about that. You know, of course, people do care about it, but it doesn't have the same narrative weight because Notre Dame is.
You know, a narrative way. People care about it. You know, it doesn't have the same narrative. It doesn't have the same, you know, weight. It doesn't have the same meaning. You know, when white people get fucked up, you know, it means something. It hurts a little bit more, right? When black people, fuck it.
Symbol of many things. It exists in literature. The Hunchback of Notre Dame exists in our imagination.
It exists in literature. The Hunchback of Notre Dame. This is racism, white supremacy literature. It exists in the establishment literature, the White House literature, mind control literature.
Collectively exists in all of us, primarily, I think, as an emblem of certainty. You know,
certainty of what? Certainty of dominance, certainty of control, certainty of not even analyzing what the fuck is going on. Certainty he speaks of is certainty in, like, the comfort of so-called civilization, the comfort within racism, white supremacy.
Like, cathedrals may no longer be these places of worship, aspiration for mankind to reach.
But they spiritually represent something to people who are in the system of racism, white supremacy. That's what he's saying. They might not represent something. It might not be. Churches don't represent something that is awesome today, but they represent the spiritual awesomeness of who we are as a civilization.
Out into the divine, because they've been reappropriated by the state. So what they represent now is the state's ability to reach out into the future, to be permanent.
So the state's ability to deify itself is something to miss. Oh God. So it's permanent. Like, since the state, he's talking about the evolution of racism, white supremacy consciousness. He's talking about how, like, the state accepting or merging with the church in some kind of way is an example of a civilization evolving in consciousness. That's what he's saying in this.
What I think happens when Notre Dame burns down is we are forced to confront the idea that France itself may not be permanent.
See? Exactly. France. What is France? Excuse me. He's talking about the impermanence. He's trying to share a spiritual interpretation of a mind-controlled event. So he's adding like the impermanence storyline to the burning down of Notre Dame to distract you from what Notre Dame represents. And you see how we're not even talking about the black church anymore. You see how that was just a fucking drop in the water, real quick. That is the dismissive nature. That's what it's talking. It's just a passing, a fleeting article, a tweet. It's a Trump tweet. Just fades out into the distance. Oh, black people's problems. Oh no, I'm talking about Armageddon, man. We're talking about white people dying. A whole bunch of white people. You know, like white people in churches, man. That's like a super disaster. That's like a mega ultra super disaster. White people dying is already a terroristic disaster. But a white church going down? That's a spiritual Armageddon. Oh my fucking God. We have to say something about this. Black churches, oh, those aren't equivalent. Black people, that's not equivalent. Let's spend not even 30 seconds. Let's spend 10 seconds referencing that and then move on back to our storyline. That's another way of like dismissing you. That's how this system works. They do it with Donald Trump, dismisses you by doing it on a tweet. Russell Brand does it by doing it in a 6-minute video talking about how burning down of Notre Dame represents Armageddon.
Well, France is a country that's experienced revolution and radical change. The Republic itself continues and under the banner of France. What does that guy say? Jean-Francois Colosimo said, described the scene as images of the end of the world. It seemed to communicate the extreme fragility of our situation. This is what I believe is true. Have you ever heard that philosophical idea of, if you had to rescue either a baby from a burning building or the last remaining copy of the complete works of Shakespeare, what would you save? And you're meant to say the baby because otherwise, once you start valuing ideology, cultural artifacts above human life, then that's the route to Nazism. And if you ever heard Ricky Gervais and Carl Pilkington talking about that, it's a very, very funny thing. You should check that out. But when a cultural artifact itself is lost in conflagration, we are forced to confront the fact that one day we will not only lose the baby, but we will lose the complete works of Shakespeare. We are forced to confront the fragility of our situation. And I suppose because it's coming at
spiritual deflection. To take an event that has intelligence behind it and just say, oh, well, we're all impermanent. We're all impermanent. It's like an example of a friend of mine gave. She was being like these New Agers. The New Agers have a a manipulative style of speaking to you and controlling you. So this is a good example of like Russell Brand. She was saying a guy that was talking to her. This is how New Agers talk. New Age pimps talking about like, oh yeah. Let's just focus on the now, baby. Let's just talk about how we can expand our consciousness into we're soulmates. We're twin flames, baby. Like, be in the now. Don't focus on all that other stuff. What was she saying? He said put that on the shelf. She's like, put that on the shelf and just be present with me. because she was naming off all these specific things where he's a piece of shit or whatever in some kind of way, whatever it was. And things that need to be addressed, things that need to be spoken on, things that are worthy of bringing to the surface because they are critical. They're important to every situation right now. Like the same way I'm saying right now. And then the guy says, "Oh, could you just be present with me now and put that on the shelf? Let's do that." What? Damn, he said something else, but you see what I'm saying? Like, you're not being in the now. You're not being present. You're not being... You see how that's a distraction from the actual information. Like, wait a second. We're talking about hundreds of years of systematic terrorism against our people. And you say that, oh, just because it's this, it doesn't matter? What the fuck? So this is how the New Agers are equivalent to a Donald Trump tweet.
Time where we're all questioning the identity of nation, the value of democracy, the nature of politics, who is in charge and to what ends, how do we deal with globalization, how do we deal with dying narratives and new emergent narratives. For a moment, just a moment, because perhaps in a week or 2 weeks we won't care and the story will have moved on to restoration. And
he's just trying to build you up to like we're all on the same team. This is what Russell Brand and Joe Rogan actually represent too. These team builders. This is what it is. New Age team building. New Age spiritual team building. And all he's saying right now is that we're on the same team. We're all talking about the same stuff. And then he's going to end because the video is going to end right now. So this is like, we all believe the same thing. That's what the rest of the video is. We all believe the same thing. But now he's going to summarize it. And then, the big finish at the end.
How the money's going to be raised and how it's going to be funded. And it'll be better than ever. But it's a curious symbol when something like that happens. We are ultimately forced to confront that nothing is permanent, not just Notre Dame, but us, ourselves, everyone we love, the great...
So don't talk about, the establishment. Don't talk about the roots and the foundation of this system. We're all impermanent, baby. Come on, be present with me. Be in the now. Let's pull our energy. Let's pool our energies together so we can manifest our world the way we see, Come on, baby. Let's do this together. That's us. It's us. We're in this together. Look at this fucking guy. This fucking guy.
Globe itself, all things ultimately ashes on some astro
all things
wind.
ultimately
And for some reason, even though we all know
astro.
it, we don't know it in our bellies because we are surprised.
We are surprised. Is it a dead bone?
Hello,
stand?
I'm doing these new...
Nope, you're not doing these videos. He said, oh, what did he say? He'll do these videos for you? New videos, let's see what he says.
Videos more frequently now.
Well, who cares? Yeah, so that's, I had to share this with you guys because this is it's fucking sick is what it is. It's disgusting. It's fucked up in so many different ways. The Graham Hancock interview I finished yesterday. I might do something on it. I might not. I might just reference it here and there. But that was a good example of that. That was just a 3-hour version of this 6-minute video. The same way Russell Brand's 3-hour interview with Joe Rogan was just another example of the dismissiveness of this video that you're watching. You just finished watching right now. Russell Brand's Notre Dame video. Like that is so the thing is to distract you with the information that's coming, that they're talking about, to keep you in the who and the what consciousness, so that you are largely subconsciously and consciously unaware of the how and the why programs that come along with that shallow, empty, manipulated what and who consciousness. So that's it. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for the support. And until next time, from all my relations, peace, love, and harmony.